the call backstage, cast and crew of Priscilla, please stand by in your dressing rooms because we will have a meet and greet with insert name of famous person. And what it means is you can't get out as quickly as to go to the bar.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise came to see Jersey Boys. We did a meet and greet with Katie Holmes.
Wow.
And literally he fist pumped every single person. Like, came on, we were all on stage. It was surreal.
Hey there, it's Connor Muller and welcome to Let's Chat Showbiz. This podcast is all about Australian showbiz. We're talking the glitz, the glam, the tough times and everything in between. Let's get this show on the road. Today's guest is an absolute cabaret icon. He's dazzled audiences all over the world and across Australia. From solo cabaret shows to major productions, he's worked alongside some of the best in the biz. We are thrilled to welcome Adelaide's very own Michael Griffiths.
Connor Muller. That's lovely. Did you write that?
I did write that.
Clever. Was that little ChatGPT number?
That one wasn't actually. That one wasn't. I did that one myself.
You know, whenever anyone who uses ChatGPT, like, I don't know, you can smell it.
You can see it as well.
Yeah, you can smell it, and it's always a little bit too florid and words that just we don't necessarily use. So no, I was joking because that was neat, and if it was chat, it would be just smarter than it needs to be, but
right.
It's like so smart that it's sort of trying too hard and it's all going to collapse.
Yeah, unless you tell it to like tone it down.
Yeah, like dumb it down a bit, make it sound like I might
have. Use less smarter words.
Yeah. Just reduce.
Now let's go back to 1999. You were a graduate of WAAPA with a Bachelor Music Theatre.
Yes.
How did that become?
So I had studied composition in Adelaide at Flinders Street School of Music, which was the TAFE sort of counterpoint to the Elder Conservatorium, which was TAFE, and the pride itself, Flinders Street was all about being kind of edgy and progressive and with an emphasis on contemporary music. And also I'd completely stuffed up year 12. So, because I had this, kind of sexuality breakdown. And so university wasn't an option at the time, and Flinders Street were happy to take me on for their certificate course where you didn't need year 12, but I had apparently such promise or such talent that they just put me straight into the diploma anyway. So I managed to just kind of get around messing up year 12, which was happy. So I finished that and actually really excelled because I loved music and loved just being surrounded by like-minded people, which wasn't quite the case at high school, which is often, a common experience. Yes. And while I was studying music, I don't even know, some peers at Flinders Street were doing musicals. And I remember I went along and saw Pippin at Mayfair at the Goodwood Institute and sort of fell in love with the lead, Kent Green, who was at the time, I think, 21. It's funny because we're all in our 50s now. And I was so taken by just this kind of joie de vivre and people singing and, wearing makeup, and it all felt very fun. Whereas I, at the time, was just being a sort of serious composer. And so music theatre felt like this wonderful antidote to just, the mundanity of life. Is mundanity a word? And I need ChatGPT to sort me out. So after graduating music, I got a whiff that music theatre was a career, a potential career path. And certainly the life of a composer felt a bit droll and also, not quite gay enough. So I auditioned for WAAPA and I got in on the first time, which I have a feeling they had a pretty Spartan year of people auditioning. And they also like to spread applicants or successful applicants from around Australia. I think they try to have a South Australian and Queensland, etc. So there were two of us from SA. It was me and Kerry Sampson. So I auditioned and I went along and put my Datsun on the Indian Pacific and went to Perth for 3 years, and I loved every minute of it. And it was a big deal. I'd never moved out of home. I was 22, but I was a young 22. I'd never been out of home. It'd been I probably spent the couple of years previous, just smoking a lot of pot and not being, I wasn't ambitious and I just hadn't quite found a path. I felt very lost. And going to WAAPA really just kind of put a pathway ahead, and it made me kind of a bit more driven, and to be surrounded by other people too who were ambitious and wanted to do things that was important. And WAAPA was great. I got a great training. Got an agent, and I got to work in musicals, and that was, I guess, the dream. Yeah. And then, that was a long answer, wasn't it?
No, that was a great answer. That's what we're here for. In 2001, you then went on to be in the cast of Shout, the original cast, with David Campbell.
I was. That was my, my first gig I got a job pretty much straight away in Sydney working at Fox Studios, which at the time had a kind of theme park element. Like, I don't know if you remember, you're too young, but they had this thing called the Titanic Experience.
Right.
It was meant to be a ride, but it wasn't. It was more like an immersive walkthrough thing, and with actors pretending to be, I was like a swing, and I understudied the sailors and the boiler room boys. It was very butch. So depending on the Titanic, you either got to survive and ended up on a ship, or you went down to the boiler room and perished.
Right.
And it was a bit choose your own adventure. And it was, so I was a swing on that. And that was essentially a Monday to Friday job, daytime job. And my first gig that I was proud of was a telemovie produced by Disney that Glenn Close was producing and starring in, of South Pacific, the musical. So she cast herself as Nellie Forbush.
Right.
Probably she was 15, 20 years too old, or at least 10, but that's okay. Harry Connick Jr. was the love interest, not hers, but, the young couple. So Harry was the young child, because Harry was barely 30. This is a long time ago. This is 2000. And I flew up to Port Douglas, and I was surrounded by Jack Thompson was there, Kimberly Davies, Glenn Close, Harry Connick Jr., other sort of television, American TV stars in small names I'll forget because I've just had a big weekend of gigs. But yeah, it was essentially star-studded. And then even within the Australian ensemble was Damon Herriman, Pippa Granderson, Leonie Page, but other people whose names will come back, one of the Wiggles. But yeah, there's kind of a lot of them have gone on to have incredible careers. David Harris, a young David Harris, and there's others I'm going to forget. So I will be embarrassed to share this because of the people I'm forgetting. But yeah, it was this terrific first gig, and it was 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I got paid quite handsomely to basically just be staying in a resort and hanging out with all of these famous actors. Yeah, sunbathing, and then I was essentially just in the ensemble with, There's Nothing Like a Dame, and what's the Bloody Mary is a girl, I loved it. The choreographer was the same guy that had worked with Madonna, Michael Jackson, and had choreographed the Björk film. I think he'd done Blonde Ambition. I think he'd choreographed Blonde Ambition, and Vince, I forget his last name, but yeah, it was quite an introduction to the industry. It was just wow, this is bonkers.
Yeah, right.
And then Shout, I was cast at the end of that year, December, and we went into that took us into 2001, and Shout was terrific. Shout was where I really learned what it's like to be in a musical.
And then you also were in the original cast of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, that toured Australia. Is that right?
Yeah, I did We'll Rock You after Shout, and then Priscilla Shout was a brand new Australian musical, which is quite rare, few and far between. In fact, back then it was the second after Boy from Oz.
Yeah, wow.
And no one thought Shout would be a success. And then it kind of was, and we toured the country, and we had sellout houses, and David Campbell was terrific, and people loved the show. No one thought it was going to do good business. And we got a year out of it, which was pretty solid work. Then Priscilla, it kind of happened again. It was a new Australian work, and I was in the room when we got to put it together with Ross Coleman, the director, the choreographer. Pardon me, Simon Phillips, the director. Stephen Elliott, who wrote the film, wasn't convinced, so he wasn't really part of that process. I think he was fine, you can do it, but I don't want to have any part of it until it was a hit, and then he kind of turned. Yeah. It was once it was a hit, he was much more sort of around the place. But I didn't meet him through that rehearsal process where we discovered a show. We didn't have a bus until, in fact, we didn't even have a bus during the first preview. It wasn't ready. So for the first ever show, which was a big fundraiser for the Bobby Goldsmith Foundation, we just pretended to have a bus. So often there would be an empty stage and all of us just kind of bobbing up and down, and Tony Sheldon pretending to drive an imaginary bus. But the crowd went wild because they were very just, they forgive you. When Simon Phillips came out that said, look, we're really sorry. We're not quite ready and we don't have a bus, so please use your imagination. And everyone was like, woo! Priscilla was magic.
You worked alongside Genevieve Lemon, Trevor Ashley.
Yeah.
Michael Caton?
Yeah, he was our first. In fact, we had a series of Bills. Michael was the first. Bill Hunter came in and did a season, which was really special. And he was so just bemused and delighted by, musicals wasn't his area of expertise. Obviously, he was the original Bill in the film. And he came to reprise the role and was just delightful and so warm-hearted and and also like a little bit, so we weren't sure, like he used to smoke in his dressing room even though he wasn't allowed to. And sometimes he'd go missing. But he was, he had a sort of, someone's job was just to be with him at all times to make sure that he didn't just sort of take off or, bless. And we had Ray Ma, who's Alf from Home and Away. He came in for a stint.
Wow.
Yeah. So we had this kind of star-studded bills. It was like this, Yeah,
right. Now, you've done a lot of work in cabaret. Let's start with the Adelaide Cabaret Festival. What was your first gig at the Adelaide Cabaret Festival?
In Vogue Songs by Madonna in 2011.
Right.
I'd been a punter, like I'd been in the audience in maybe 2006. In fact, it was just before I started Priscilla because, we must have started rehearsals in July. And I reckon in June, I came to Adelaide for my mum's birthday and Tony Sheldon had directed his mum, Tony Lamond, in a show. And so I went, because I remember first day of Priscilla rehearsal, I was basically saying to Tony, congrats, I saw the show you directed. So I saw a whole bunch of shows like, oh, wow, Cabaret Festival. Like, who knew? This is terrific.
Yeah.
And then I came back again when Jersey Boys was rehearsing, and there was the year Bernadette Peters was the headliner. David Campbell was the AD. And I came back in again, was just like, wow, this is incredible. It's like, this is way more exciting than music theatre. Music theatre is great, but like I remember just having real flash light bulb moments going, oh, this is exciting. And I feel like this is actually like something in my skill set. And I remember really putting it out to the universe, like, I want to do this.
Yeah.
This is what I want to do. And then sure enough, be careful what you wish for. 2011 was my first Adelaide Cabaret Festival debut. And I went, to quote Dean Bryant, who wrote the show for me and directed, he said, Michael, you became maniacal. I was like, okay, calm down. But I did. I was so, it needed to be the best show ever. Like that was how I was like all in. And at the time I was on Jersey Boys swinging. And I was an offstage swing. So if I wasn't needed, and I was often needed, but whenever I wasn't, I was literally just in the green room where there was a piano. So I created the show at work in Sydney. And it had to be the best cabaret show ever. So much so that Dean Bryant sent me the first draft and I rewrote it. Sent it back to him, and he was like, well, that's rude. And I was like, but it needs to be the best show ever, and it's not. And he's like, Michael, like, calm down. You've been very disrespectful. And I was like, well, make it better. Anyway, poor Dean. But yeah, and I'm very proud of it. I'm still doing it. Like I did it in New Zealand this year, and we haven't even updated it, and it's like 15 years old.
It's still here.
It's crazy. I say the show in the first person as if I'm the queen of pop without any impersonation or affectation. Well, I mean, I just turn up the camp a bit, but that's not hard. And at the end of the show, I say my age, and I always update it each year. And in the first draft, which I've never updated the age, well, as I say, I barely updated the entire script, it reads, I'm 53, which was her age. I'm now 51 this year. And it was in New Zealand. I was like, I'm 53. I was like, Dean, I'm the age basically. And this show is so old. And I remember she was so old. And at 50, I remember thinking 53, and here I'm like, oh God, I'm 51 this year. It's so, we've come full circle. In 2 years' time, I'll be the age that she was, whereas she was, sort of in the twilight of her career even then. I'm like, God, I haven't had a hit album yet. Not one, not even a single. So respect to her. It's affectionate, but there is a little bit of arrow slinging. But Madonna it's a fun show.
Yeah. Do you have a favourite memory from the Adelaide Cabaret Festival? You've been performing obviously for years.
Oh, look, it's all fond. It's all fond. Look, just because it came to mind, the year I did Madonna there was it was a bit unhinged that it isn't anymore. It feels like now it's much more well-behaved, but I feel like 15 years ago, there was this unhinged element that, we were all staying in the Intercontinental, and the bar, it was sort of legendary, the late night bars that would go till the sun came up. And I remember sitting with Margarita Prakatan, who's no longer with us, may she rest in peace. And she is kind of from Latin America and would do, sort of, I forget the genre you'd call it, but that kind of Latin flavour. Everything would become a bossa nova. And David Campbell had brought her over because she used to guest on a late night show. Anyway, she's sort of infamous. And she was a delight. And I really quickly befriended, sort of really hit it off with her. And I just remember sitting, and she was in her 80s at the time. And I remember sitting with her, and she was like a kid at Christmas, just beaming from all of this cabaret and all these artists, all just drunk and lively. And she had this little hit flask of, I think, vodka, but something that she'd pour in all the drink and go, but like this, like she was up to mischief. And I just remember, and it was my first cafe, just thinking, oh wow, like this is cool.
This is it.
This is fun. And that wasn't even performing. That was more, I guess, the camaraderie, and you just have these fierce, quick bonds with people. I remember a few years later, the same thing happening with Joey Arias at a brunch in the Intercont as well. And I've never laughed so much or so hard. He was on, and he was channeling the housekeeping artist, but as if they was from some kind of Pan's Labyrinth situation. Look, it won't even make sense if you weren't there, but it's those intersecting with other artists is what I think about, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've performed, obviously, every cabaret festival in Australia, but you've also performed all over the world, like New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, London, Hong Kong, everywhere. You must be proud of that.
Look, when you say it like that, it sounds very impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the reality is, my experience is of the hard work of it. And I don't say that in a kind of, poor me, but I just think of, it's funny. I think we're not programmed to celebrate our successes. We're programmed to just remember the hard stuff. So I remember the tricky things and the disappointments and look, I should be humble and I should be proud and go, it was all amazing. But I guess the experiences of missed flights and of bad night's sleep and of anxiety. and I remember the night before I performed the first time in LA, I was in it was a famous rock and roll hotel where like ABBA used to stay. And there's a picture, not the Standard. Anyway, this famous LA, because we thought, let's stay there.
Yeah.
And these kids were having a party in the room the next door, and it was 11 p.m. And I just remember, I've got a show the next day, and I wanted to get up and go to the gym and all the rest. And so I put in earplugs and took a Valium, and they didn't put me down. Then we had to get, so I sort of, you talk about Los Angeles, and I remember the kids' party in the hotel the night before, which meant I hadn't slept as well as I wanted to before the gig. And, that's sort of how it feels.
Yeah, of course.
But no, when you say it, I'm very proud. And
Yeah. Is it true that Barry Humphries was the one who asked you to create the tribute to Broadway songwriter Cole Porter?
Look, I pitched Kylie Minogue the year Barry was in, because I'd done Madonna, I'd done Annie Lennox, and I had this idea that would be a trifecta, a trilogy, if you will, of gay, finishing with Kylie. And happily, it would have been an American, a British, and an Australian, which, as Australians, they're the kind of three cultures that, are our touchstones, us being a kind of hybrid. And so I pitched it. But funnily enough, earlier that year, as an aside, I'd been up in Noosa singing Culture Club at this little piano bar, and Anna Goldsworthy was there. Now, she's now head of the Conservatorium, famed concert pianist, author. We went to school together. We were friends at Pembroke. But I'd collided with her when I moved back to Adelaide. She had too, and we crossed paths. And we're like, oh, wow, it's Anna Goldsworthy. And she's like, oh, and she came to see my Madonna show in a tent at Fringe. So she's up in Noosa doing Rachmaninoff, and I'm singing Culture Club. And then we had a glass of red wine, and her partner had said, oh, Michael, was that a Cole Porter song you sang tonight? I'd sang more than Culture Club. And I was like, oh, no, it wasn't, but he's terrific. And Anna was like, oh, he would suit you. You should sing Cole Porter. I was like, sure. She said, I'd write you a Cole Porter show. And it was just it was a throwaway. And I'm sure she didn't even mean anything by it. And then a few months later, I pitched Kylie Minogue to Barry Humphries, and he's like, no, not now. Not like, I'm not having Kylie Minogue in my. And I was like, Anna Goldsworthy said she'd write me a Cole Porter show. I was like, right, what about Cole Porter? What if I do a Cole Porter show? Like, it was literally just, I was like, God damn it, I want to be in this festival and I'll do anything it takes. I will learn a whole show from scratch about an artist that I barely know anything about because I want to be at this bloody festival. And he was like, Cole Porter, we'll have some of that. It's like, great. So I went back to Anna. I was like, hey, Anna, I don't even know if you remember this, but you sort of said you'd write a Cole Porter show. Well, Barry Humphries wants it, so how about it? And she was like, that's how it happened.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
And in 2016, you won a Helpman Award for Best Cabaret Performer for that
show. Yeah. Wow. So actually, that show was a real game changer for my career because until then, I'd just been this kind of queer contemporary pop singer. And then Cole Porter just changed changed my kind of the way I worked and my appeal, and I know I found an audience during that show. That's the show that's probably been most widely seen, and it's also the show that they wanted in London, and that got me over to the States, kind of above board, and that's the show that has toured the most, I guess. And it also, I think too, if you say you sing Madonna or Kylie Minogue, people are like, oh, lightweight, but if you can sing Cole Porter, it's like, oh, okay. Because also I worked bloody hard because it's hard. You can't just sort of wing it on chord symbols. I remember, just nights and nights and nights, my poor partner, because I'm not a clever sight reader. And as all pianists, I don't rate myself for highly. And you'll never meet a pianist that calls himself a good pianist. Michael Feinstein does not consider himself a good pianist. I'm dropping that name because I've had dinner with him and he's a great guy. He's like, oh, I'm a terrible pianist. I'm like, I mean, what hope is there for anyone? So when I say I'm a terrible pianist, know that Michael Feinstein says the same, and I am a terrible pianist. It just when I had, so it was like, it's blood, sweat and tears to get that show up. And it's still really hard, that one. Yeah, I'm never happy with the performance. I'm always like, well, that was a mistake. That was a mistake. Messed that up, cheated that, but that's show business.
That's right. You mentioned there you won a Helpman Award for that, but in 2018 you received a star on the Adelaide Festival Centre Walk of Fame.
I did.
It must have been a nice feeling.
Look, bless, it was gorgeous. I mean, I feel like the first thing I said was, well, this is never going to happen anywhere else in the world. This is only going to happen in Adelaide, so I appreciate it, but it's also kind of funny. It's gorgeous. It means I've worked quite a bit since, and, my name is in the pavement, and like, it's gorgeous. It makes me smile, but I also, it's not going to happen anywhere else. But if I'm Adelaide's own, like I'm good with that. That's delightful. Rather, better that than not being having a star anywhere. So it's cute. It's gorgeous.
Now, you've done a lot of work with Carlotta, including being her music director for some time. Tell me about working with Carlotta and how did that become?
Yeah, right. So I'd done Midsummer, which is the Melbourne feast, a sort of gay and lesbian arts festival. I'd done that quite a few years and happily had quite a bit of success and found grew a bit of an audience. I'd done it maybe 3 or 4 years in a row. And a producer in Melbourne who'd seen me wanted to present Carlotta as the kind of hero event of Midsummer in 2016 because he'd seen her somewhere and she'd been touring for a few years, including at Feast, which I'd seen in maybe 2014. She'd been singing with karaoke tracks, doing a kind of one-woman show, but just her and, hit play. And this producer was like, well, look, we want her, but we can't have these awful karaoke tracks. We need to have a pianist. And they wanted someone gay. And so, of course, I came to mind. Maybe I wouldn't be surprised if I was 2 or 3 down on the list. But he reached out and said, Michael, hey, we want to present Carlotta. If we paid you, I'm like, yep, you've got, if you don't have to say anything else.
Fine.
But it's like, if we sort of flew you and accommodated you and paid you a fee, I was like, babe, I'd play for anyone if you do that. But for Carlotta, that would actually, so I said, I would love to do that. I'd been in Priscilla. I'd watched Beauty and the Beast on TV with Stan Zemanek when I was a kid, when I was a teenager. And I was like, oh, wow. So I flew up to the Gold Coast to meet her. And I was very shy and she was very shy and we didn't say anything for a little bit. It was like a dozen of us at this bigger table and we weren't quite next to each other. Right. But as soon as I said, I'm like, oh, that's Carlotta. And she knew that this youngish, 10 years ago, I was 40, that this, 40-year-old homosexual was flying up to meet her that could play the piano. And it took us a while to say anything. And the first thing she said to me was, Peter, Quiet Please, There's a Lady on Stage. That's a good song. And I said, oh, that's Peter Allen, isn't it? She goes, yeah, he was a mate of mine. I was like, oh. And so she got me singing Peter Allen, and then I went to her show the next night, the show with Karaoke Shakes, and I sat up the back with my iPhone recording quietly so that I could then figure out what key things were in, and then I could do some prep work and meet her and essentially do the show that she knew, but with me. And that's what we did, like a 2-week season in Melbourne. And it was just meant to be a one-off. And we just we clicked, we found a groove. And after, I remember saying, hey, if you want to do more shows, like, I know people.
Let me know.
Like, I was like, I can, at that time, I'd done a few laps of Australia doing cabaret festivals and this and that. I was like, if you want to keep doing this, babe, like, let's go. And so we have, and I'm with her in September in Sydney on Oxford Street for the 3rd or 4th time. And we've done Cab Fest twice. We've done around Australia, really, and we have a good time. And I've learned so much from her. She's incredible. You know, she's a living legend. She's got her name in the concrete in Sydney on Oxford, in the Cross. But like, I was in Perth on the weekend doing my Peter Allen show, and actually what I'm doing is what I've learned from Carlotta, which is to come out in front of an audience and be spontaneous, which all of my early work was scripted. Like music, come out and I say these words in this order to the best of my ability. And with Carlotta, she would come out, it would be different every night, and that bothered me. I was like, how can you be different? You know, the show needs to be the same. And Carlotta's like, well, that's not how it works, babe. That's not how I work. You just come out and you just got to be present. And I learned that from her. And it's an exciting and dangerous place to be. And you don't always win. And that's what's exciting too. It's like, it's never the same. And I've just been in the room with her many, many, many times. And you win some and you lose some. But when you win gold. Yeah.
Obviously, that was Carlotta, but you've worked with some of the other industry's best. You've worked with people like Caroline O'Connor.
Yes.
How about working with Caroline?
Look, I haven't worked closely with her, but I've just crossed paths with her, and I'm a massive fan. And I am very, like, it's fondness, it's fandom, it's all of the things. I was in Times Square about to do In Vogue at 54 Below, which was a dream come true. Because I remember when they announced this venue, 54 Below Feinstein, I was just like, oh, I want to play there. And then, I don't know how that's going to happen. So then a few years later, I got invited to do Cole Porter at Palm Desert. And I remember thinking, oh, maybe when I'm in America. And then for some weird reason, Michael Feinstein's sound guy I'm friendly with, because he came to see Priscilla and we went out and partied in Sydney and we've been friends ever since. And he sort of reached out to me, are you coming to America? Do you want to play 54 Below? I can get you in there. I'm like, do I? That's again, throw it up to the universe. Yeah. So it just sort of magically happened. And so I'm in Times Square the day before. I just arrived and I'm all covered up in, it was winter. Literally, all you could see is my eyes. And me and Daryl are in Times Square going, oh, wow. And I had this thing on my back like this little hand. And I turn around and it's Caroline O'Connor. And she says, are you Michael Griffiths? And I'm like, how does Caroline O'Connor know who I am?
Yeah.
And it's because I'd been on this documentary, not even about show business, about my genetic paternal history, which is just completely unrelated. And it had screened earlier that year on just the ABC. And she'd watched it.
Is that anonymous?
Yeah, it's been doing it as anonymous. So she'd watched that. And I mean, we'd been in the same industry, but we'd never worked together. And I don't think she knew me as an industry person, but I'm not even sure. But literally, it was just this mind-blowing moment.
How did she recognise you? Did she
I don't know, Connor, because honestly, I was beanie, scarf, gloves.
What are the
it's
chances?
Snowing, and Caroline, and she was there doing Anastasia, Broadway turn. And I said, do you have a night off? She was rehearsing. I'm doing Madonna turn. She's like, oh yeah, I have a night off. And so she came and she sat with my partner. And she led a standing ovation, and she was like a kid at Christmas. And at one point, I started doing a Cantor and Ebb vamp, and I sort of announced that she was in the room, and her leg goes up. And it was like one of my favorite nights performing. It was a show where I could do no wrong, and they don't happen very often. Often it's just a series of wrongdoings. But that was a show where everything I did landed and the audience were wild, and Caroline O'Connor was sitting with my partner and put her leg up in the air, and I got a standing ovation. It was like, it was only 100 people in the crowd, but it's only 100 seaters. So it was a really special night. And so when you mention her name, that all of that comes to me.
Yeah.
invited her to perform at my at Perth Cabaret Festival, cabaret, at Perth Cabaret Festival last year, and she was absolutely incredible. She was the opening night act, and she came out with her band, and it was just like she was on fire, and you would just. It raced by. There was never a dull moment, and she was just spectacular. And you kind of think, we have in Australia, we don't rate our talent. We always feel like we can't compete with Broadway and West End. So Caroline O'Connor is international. Like, she is like, she's just incredible.
Yeah,
it was
definitely.
just.
Yeah, wow.
I mean, I was in tears.
I can imagine.
Yeah, I was in tears, like more than once. She was absolutely incredible. Yeah.
And recently, the artistic director for the Adelaide Cabaret Festival was Virginia Gay.
Yeah.
Tell me about Virginia Gay.
Look, funnily enough, I mean, Jenny went to WAAPA after me.
All right.
But what happens when you go to an arts institution, I'm sure it's the same at NIDA or BCA, that as soon as you meet someone that did the course you did, even if it wasn't at the same time, you're mates. Yeah. You're on, it's like each other, and we're all kind of, that's just, I'm sure it goes beyond show business, but show business people are funny. So I don't even remember the first time I met her, but we have so many mutual friends, and definitely we've been to WAAPA, so I just always remember feeling a bit connected. And then, of course, she's had this high-profile TV career, so I just knew who she was. But she was in Edinburgh the first year I went as Ali McGregor's kind of bitch, or, second in charge. And she was there doing her own show, I think, but I saw her at Ali's because I did a guest spot. I sang Madonna. And that's where I just remember really first crossing paths was Jenny was in Edinburgh, of all places. And I mean, we've definitely been friendly since, but we've never really crossed paths. And then this year, she reached out to me. She said, well, look, could you music direct the final variety? And I was like, I mean, I would love to. I mean, then I kind of doubt myself and think, oh, can I do this? But I mean, that's everyone in every profession. Yeah, and so we worked together and we created, created a little set together and sort of put, like, none of the things either of us had done before. It was very collaborative. And I think we're both really proud. We had 2 terrific nights and she killed it. And we really enjoyed riffing off each other. And it was terrific. So it was lovely to actually work with her because I hadn't.
Yeah. Now, in 2022, you were in Normal Heart by the State Theatre Company in South Australia.
I was.
Tell me about the role that you played and the importance of that show.
So it's funny. I might be speaking out of turn, but oh well. They announced, I mean, I'd always wanted to work with the State Theatre Company, and it's sort of being from Adelaide, it just somehow, like, performing at the Festival Theatre for the first time, like, it's so special being an Adelaide folk, it's iconic. And so I'd always wanted to work at the State Theatre, but also when you're a music theatre performer, I know I'm not alone in this. We sort of don't back ourselves as actors, and the thought of doing a straight play, I say straight in quotation marks, because straight often means no music, but also you couldn't get a gayer play than Normal Heart, but that's a play on words. But yes, us music theatre performers, we don't back ourselves as actors. And I remember when the brief went, and I thought if I ever work for the State Theatre, it'll be in a musical sense, and they don't almost ever do musicals.
No.
Oh, they do occasionally. So the brief went out wanting actors for Normal Heart, and it was, Dean Bryant directing, who is my best friend, and we lived together at WAAPA, and, he's written 4 of my cabaret shows. And we've worked together on Priscilla and, but also the brief went out, I was like, I'm not going to go into a room and audition for my friends, not thinking that they wanted me. I was just like, I don't need to put them through that so they feel that they are So I'm not going to audition. I want to go along and support it. I'm so excited they're doing it, but it's not for me. So I miss the auditions.
Yeah, right.
And also I had some gigs. I remember when I saw we need you to rehearse here and perform there. And I had a few gigs I'd already signed for, just a couple. And it was, it's not to be, and that's okay. And it's funny because the first memory I have at WAAPA is of doing a reading of The Normal Heart with Dean directing. As we were kids, we were 22, and we came in our school holidays, and Dean cast it, and we read through The Normal Heart as this newish queer play. Yeah. And that's 25 years, more than 25 years, or no, it's 2022, about 25 years had passed. And Dean's yeah, now it sounds like, isn't that funny? But it's not to be.
Yeah, right.
I did all the auditions, blah, 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 blah. Dean's visiting in Adelaide, maybe at the end of the auditions, I forget. But essentially I'd missed them. And we went down to the beach together, and I didn't realise that Dean had something on his mind, but he's essentially said, hey, Michael, would you be in it? I'd love you to be in it. I'd love you to play this role and that role and play piano. And I felt like also, it's kind of, you're vulnerable asking an old friend. Yeah, I mean, it's funny navigating that space, but I was really touched. And I was like, look, I would absolutely love to now that you asked me. Like, I didn't want to have to put myself in a room and, go through, I don't audition anymore because I sound like, I don't know what I sound like, but the thought of going in and auditioning for something, I haven't done that for a long time. And, but to be asked I was really touched. And I said, well, look, I've got this gig and can we, and they let me out of rehearsals. I had a couple of things where I had to disappear. I was with Stephen Oliver and I was up in Gawler. But that was not a problem. So I was a couple of support roles, but I was on stage the whole play. In fact, maybe the only actor, because I play incidental music with a cellist that was written specifically for it, beautifully. But it was a very, very special experience. And it was an incredible bunch of actors. And it was, again, I keep saying dream come true. But it's the third time I've said it today, but it really was. I mean, and to have done it 25 years earlier with Dean, it's like bonkers.
Another full circle.
Yeah.
For you.
But it was just extraordinary, actually. Like it was just, it couldn't have gone better. And also, I remember Dean could be prickly as a director, and I know he won't mind me saying that because he wasn't. I feel like he now has a confidence that maybe the prickliness was, earlier on in his career was probably just because, as younger people and whatever else. But it was so lovely to be in the room with his gentle authority, and he's smart, and just to be in that, and even just to observe, like it was just a treat to be in that room at all times. And again, these friendships and this kind of love that's formed that also just vanishes as soon as it's over. Like some of those actors I've hardly ever said a word to since, but at the time we were all deeply in love with each other and the project. And
Now, what has been the highlight of your career?
Look, probably the hardest thing I've done and the thing I'm most proud of is leading the Perth Cabaret Festival, which really, unfortunately, but hey, that's showbiz. You get the wins and the losses, which we kind of collapsed financially this year. But just the kind of what it required of me in terms of programming it, hosting it, being sort of the face of it, performing in it, putting together a closing night gala, which was, about sort of curating that as a show that worked and bringing a band in. And I remember for the last year we did it, we just upscaled and we brought in brass, and it meant that I'm, getting charts done and somehow doing what probably in Adelaide is, I mean, I'm some boastful, but too late. But in Adelaide, this is sort of team. And in Perth, it was like me and Ali and Graham. It was three of us. Yeah. So it meant that I was just doing, well, at least for the closing night gala, I kind of pulled a 90-minute variety show out of the hat and was sort of everything. But I absolutely loved it and somehow pulled it off. I was so proud of those, particularly those galas, because they were just the biggest. They were very ambitious. I mean, it's one thing to turn up and do the show you've done, but to pull out something that you've curated and hosted and are performing into a big crowd in a big room with a big team there's a lot at stake. And I'm really proud of being able to do that and also never sort of lose my temper, or like, I know that if I was 10 years younger, I would have lost my temper but I feel like at a point in my career and in my confidence that I'm like, I think I can do this, as opposed to 10 years ago, people were like, I can't fucking do this. There's no way I can do this. And but I'm like, no, I sort of, don't entirely back myself, but sort of trust the process. Yeah. And that just comes from putting in the time. Yeah. But and the other thing too with the festival is you get to kind of give artists a gig. Yeah. And I remember Kate Sobrano saying that, because I did Annie Lennox the year. I always remember her saying, so great, because I get to give artists a gig. And I'm like, Oh, that really is great.
Rewarding.
And people that I admire, like, I reached out to Carolina Connor even to be like, I don't know if you remember me. Do you remember me? Even though you came to my show in New York, but you're a busy person. She's like, of course I remember you. And she's like, I'd love to come to Perth. I mean, I reached out on Facebook. I mean, it sounds so humble. You know, you think there's a team talking to her team. No, it's me on Facebook going, hey, Caroline, you want to come to Perth?
Yeah.
But I mean, that's when you pulled the curtain back, like that's show business. It's just people,
That's right.
people doing whatever it takes
That's right. No,
to make stuff happen.
Yeah.
But she was in Noosa and I reached out on Facebook and it happened. And as I said, she came and she just blew the roof off. She was just incredible.
Yeah, wow. Who'd be the most famous person you've met?
Because of show business, because of being in musicals, when you're in a big musical and there's a famous person in town, the PR people now I do sound like serious show business. So the PR people from your musical talk to the PR people of the really famous person and they talk and they arrange it. And the famous person comes and gets a really good seat for free, sees the show, then comes on for a meet and greet. And it's all like a well-oiled machine and it happens so much and so often that you get desensitized to it. And what happens is the call backstage, cast and crew of Priscilla, please stand by in your dressing rooms because we will have a meet and greet with insert name of famous person. And what it means is you can't get out as quickly as to go to the bar.
Yeah.
So often it was an imposition. That's the reality.
Yeah.
But it's funny, some of those impositions were Elton John.
Was that on Priscilla?
Yeah.
I think Genevieve Lemon told the same story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With David Furnish.
Yeah.
Danny Minogue, Jackie Collins, Guy Pearce, Hugo Weaving. Tom Cruise came to see Jersey Boys. We did a meet and greet with Katie Holmes.
Wow.
And literally he fist pumped every single person. Like came on, we were all on stage. It was surreal. And not short, but not tall, you know. Because that's what everyone wants to know. Like, how short is he? He's like, he was, you know. So the lead of Jersey Boys was Bobby Fox.
Yes.
Who is not short. So what they did to make him look short, because Frankie Valli is short, was they cast a really tall Gladstone Toft and a really tall Stephen May. Yeah. Like these boys are 6'3", 6'4", and then a relatively tall Scott Johnson, so that Bobby looked short.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise was Bobby Fox's height.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Again, not short, just not tall.
Yeah.
Anyway. Tom, that's such a boring thing to talk about. But what is interesting is his charisma. He came on and like absolutely fist pumped and like straight in the eye. Good job. He said, good job. He'd seen me do Bob Crew. And Katie was she had Suri in a little pram and she was in a white dress and she was just kind of quite demure and quite shy. And it was all about Tom. So she's a bloody famous person too, but yeah, she was just sort of with Suri.
Wow.
And and then in terms of working with, even like, yeah, like just having Ray Maher and Bill Hunter and Michael Cater. These are legends of Australia.
100%,
yeah. You sort of forget, look, fame is funny and you can't pick who you're going to be starstruck by. Like, it's weird.
Very.
Sometimes you're starstruck when you don't expect to be and other times you're just not. It's weird.
Well, you think you're going to be and then you're fine.
Yeah, but I guess Tom Cruise, Elton John, like that's crazy, isn't it? Yeah. But even with Elton, I was just, probably the reality was like, do we have to stick around for a photo?
Yeah, I need a drink. Let's go.
And I didn't take selfies this is a bit before iPhones, but to think I didn't take the, and now I would I met Liza Minnelli.
Did you really?
Yeah, I shook her hand. But I'm just remembering that now after her show.
I asked you the most famous person you've met, and we're on Let's Chat Showbiz, and then you wait to say,
Liza Minnelli.
Liza Minnelli.
So she performed in Melbourne, and she was incredible. And I was there rehearsing Jersey Boys, and when she performs somewhere, opens up a space after a show for whatever musicals are playing in town. And it was a remount of Chicago with Carolina Connor. So Carolina Connor was there with whoever came from Chicago and only a small handful from Jersey. I can't even remember, but it wasn't many of us. And David Hawkins, who I'm friendly with, was the producer. So he put word out, Liza likes to, well, he's not American, Liza likes to meet the cast. So you guys come backstage. It's like,
that's wild.
So we all went backstage and she came out and she was tiny.
Yeah.
She was like this tiny, fragile little thing. And she came around and met everyone. And I think I said, I love you. I can't remember, but it was just like, yeah. Wow. Whereas with other artists, I'm like, I wish I'd, Elton, like how incredible. And it was just as a queer person, as a trailblazer, but I just posted the photo and went to the bar,
Yeah. Wow, but Liza Minnelli, hey.
Liza Minnelli, yeah. And I don't have photos. I don't previously believe me.
So you're just making things up.
Hey, Caroline O'Connor can vouch because we're in the same room and we are friends now.
Yeah. Now, at the end of each episode, I ask a question to ask the next guest. And our last guest was Dr. Trevor Jones.
Oh, Trevor.
We discussed wind down routines after a show, how to wind down. And his question was, what is your wind down routine? How do you walk away? And
look, you know what it used to be was having a drink.
that's what Trevor said, yeah.
But it's not anymore because I stopped drinking at 48, turning 49. As a bit of I'm turning 50 soon. It's just look, I'd been on holiday and it had been a particularly boozy, bawdy, fill in the blanks. And I came home and I look at photos of me and it was a working holiday too. And I kind of feel like I wasn't making the best decisions, but hey, we're human beings and I can be honest about it.
Yeah.
I was smoking cigarettes, and fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
And I came home and I was like, and I looked terrible. I looked awful. It had been booze and smokes and late nights and parties. And I came home and was like, right, we need to shake this up. Let's just cut out the booze. And I did, and I didn't have a drink for about a year. And I felt incredible, actually.
Yeah, wow.
And I was all about, oh, wow, this is the answer. I was one of those people like sobriety. And now I call myself soberish. I reintroduced booze. I wanted to drink at my 50th because I feel like, look, there is power in festivities, and alcohol does serve a nice purpose to kind of, and I think it's just I feel woke now. I feel like I understand how alcohol was negatively affecting me because I used to drink red wine every night and I thought that was healthy because antioxidants, and there's no problem drinking a glass or two every night. That's not a problem. To stop it shows that at 50, it wasn't okay. And I look and I'm puffy and I was not well. So yeah, I stopped drinking, and now I don't drink very often. I didn't have a sip during all of Cabaret Festival.
Yeah, wow. And that's the thing me and Trevor discussed is it's quite hard it's in your face. You're in the industry where everything's in your face and it's there. It's free. It's take it,
Cabaret particularly, it really endorses sort of drunken, it and I thought that I wouldn't be able to be in that cabaret space without booze, but actually I've had 2 or 3 years now, a couple of years. And I didn't drink at the Cabaret Festival before that either. And actually, it's fine. And also, I'm not the only one. I know there's, Olivia O'Donovan and other artists are completely sober. I now call myself soberish because I will have a drink just on occasion and I will enjoy it. And normally I'll only have about 2, whereas I used to start drinking towards the end of, if it was a cabaret show and someone offered me a drink and it was near the end of my show, great. And that would be my first. And then it would be at least 2 or 3 before I had that aha moment and I was relaxed. And now I sort of see, I'm not like that anymore, and that's okay. And it's not about, look, it's whatever works. That's so right. Now unwinding for me, it's more like it's a herbal tea. I'm obsessed with this high protein, low fat, sugar-free yogurt. I know that's rock and roll, but I'll go home and I don't want to say the brand because that feels gauche, but this yogurt I'm obsessed with, and I put in raspberries and walnuts and honey, and I'm obsessed.
Yeah, right.
That would be my, go home and have that.
Healthier than alcohol, so you wouldn't.
And then I'll sleep better. But yeah, like it used to be booze.
Yeah. For
25 years or 23 years it was booze, and now it's not. But the other thing with me, booze is a gateway. Once I'm on my 3rd drink, right, who's got a cigarette, or right, where we go next?
What's
next?
I mean? Yeah. And then all of a sudden, I get.
And then it's like, and if I have a gig the next day, that's not going to fly, sister. Not for me. When I was in my 20s, I could back it up. Now it's just more about, I take pride in being professional because I'm not such a wanker. Sorry, but you asked, and there's no judge. Look, people that drink, like it's not judgment. It's that's what works for me.
Yeah.
And I look at photos of me just before I stop drinking, and I'm like, oh look, I'm 5-10 kilos heavier and puffy and groggy, and I feel like my body. I feel like I know how to look after myself.
Yeah, right.
I'm sort of off super boring, but I'm off processed food, so I just eat
Good on you.
what I
Credit.
Yeah. I mean, obviously when you're on tour, you do best. So I was just in Perth. So I was eating Thai food for dinner, but it was pretty yummy. But at home I cook and I actually love it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's only taken me 50 years to figure out how to put things in my mouth that serve me.
Right.
Well, okay. Let's not unpack that comment. But, you know, like you just sort of think food, you know, whatever. We'll just grab something along the way. Oh, no, I guess, respect my body, which I didn't used to. Yeah.
So that means now a question for the next guest. I don't know who it is. It could be anyone, but a question can be absolutely anything. I had Bonnie in episode 1 and she asked, where was the most unusual place that you had sex? So,
of course, you know, Bonnie asked that.
So, you know, you can ask anything.
Oh, isn't she terrific? Bonnie's good value.
She's great.
What's the most embarrassing thing that's happened to you on stage?
I love it. Brilliant question. I'm
not sure what mine is, but I feel like, oh, that's exciting.
What is yours?
Embarrassing. Look, I know that on the way home, I'm going to remember the best answer because that's what happens. Okay. I mean, embarrassing's not the word. Mortifying would be a better word. It was my first cabaret festival, so the year of Madonna, and I've already given you a hint about how invested I was and maniacal I was. Thanks, Dean, for that word. And it was a taste before the debut, and I remember thinking, right, I'm going to come in all guns blazing, and it was a event in the Festival Theatre, 2,000 seater, and it was, at least the stalls were full, so there's 1,000 people there, and it was Volunteers Day. So basically it's just nice old people that had, you know, brought in scones for whatever. And I just was going to give them a taste of this show, which had a lot of cheeky language, including a C-bomb, which I didn't end up getting the C-bomb out because by then I'd have figured, oh, we're in trouble here. But I came out all guns blazing and with the script that was written, that, you know, but with F-bombs and a Mickey Mouse finger F joke. And there were, unbeknownst to me, or even if I'd been told, I was so tunnel visioned about my opening night the next night. And I went in thinking I was going to get a standing ovation for this 15-minute set. I thought that I would get a standing ovation. I went in and I started, and people started walking out because they had not come to hear Madonna songs or profanity. They'd come to have a cup of tea and a scone and been given a piece of paper that said, thank you for your contribution for being a volunteer. And I was mortified. And it was in the paper. David Campbell had to make an apology in like Parliament House because it was a government event.
Oh my God.
And I'd just come in and been sassy and profane. But it was a good lesson for me to actually really clock, you know, like you just kind of think dark room, show business, do your show.
Yeah.
No. And it was like 11, you know, it was 11 a.m. And I guess I just sort of learned a lot in that process, but it was mortifying. And I've never, you know, it is, I now know what time of day it is, who's in the crowd, their age group, what they've signed up for, because it's something, and that is part of the gig. But I just went in thinking, that they're all Madonna fans and they don't mind a cuss word. Neither were true.
That's brilliant. Now, my final question for you is there someone you think would be good on Let's Chat Showbiz?
Libby O'Donovan.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's brilliant.
She's amazing.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
Yeah, she's got some stories.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your time, Michael. It's been a pleasure, and I really appreciate your time.
Anytime.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks for tuning in. If you want more episodes of Let's Chat Showbiz, you can follow along on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Instagram, TikTok, and even Facebook for all you oldies. See you next time on Let's Chat Showbiz.